This is Common Sense Radio on Lanterns Media Network, powered by freedom-loving, self-reliant Americans. I'm Susan Swift. I'm a proud native Texan, married mother of 7. I've been an actress, a lawyer, and I love God, family, and country. And yes, I'm the C word. I'm a conservative, fighting the good fight on the left coast.
And I'm AJ Davis, born and raised on the East Coast, now infiltrating the left coast. I'm a millennial, a husband, father of 3, and a military veteran. I'm fat, I'm bald, and yeah, I'm not politically correct. Welcome to Common Sense Radio on Lanterns Media Network. And welcome to the program, folks. You're listening to Common Sense Radio on the Lanterns Radio Network. We have a jam-packed show tonight. We have a lot to cover. First, we're going to discuss the situation that happened at Alder Hey this week. Repeal the 8th vote is only weeks away, and the yes crowd will go down on the wrong side of history yet again. A story of a hospital in the U.S. that is trying to play God, and if we have enough time after, we will cover some more very stories focused around life. But finally, we have a guest that's going to join us, Johnathon Dunne from Freedom's Disciple. How are you, John?
Hey, brother, thank you so much for joining or for having me on today.
We are lucky enough to have you. We are so blessed. I want to publicly thank you because you have been really spreading the word on this Alfie Evans story and really keeping the conservative side. Actually, it's not even a Republican or Democrat. It's a story of life, and that's the most important thing. And I was, keeping us all able to pray and keep traction on it. So thank you for that.
You know what, Johnathon, before we go into it, I just wanted to remind you and I and AJ, we all know who Alfie Evans is. We all, when you say the Alfie Evans story, you and I all know. I was telling it to my sister just yesterday, and she had no idea. She didn't know because, she's not always as plugged in as we are. So that's where I was hoping you would start because you have a lot of the facts. There are people who still don't know. They haven't heard about this little 3-month-old boy who's essentially been killed by the English government. And I was hoping you could start right there because when I told her, she said, "You've got to be kidding. I've never heard of this." So please tell people who haven't heard about Alfie who this little boy was.
Sure. So the first thing I'd say is for people, if you want to Google Alfie Evans, you'll get a lot more details about it and the journey he's been on. But I'll give you the synopsis of it. This is a 23-month-old baby. He was born in May 9th, 2016 to Tom Evans and Kate James. He had a normal birth, but over the first few months of his life, the first few months of a baby's life, it's critical under certain developmental aspects and targets a baby has to hit. And, in the first 6 months, baby Alfie didn't actually hit them. In December 2016, he got a version of a flu or a cold, and he had to go to the hospital. And he went into Alder Hey Hospital and has actually never left there since. Over the period of time, he's got different issues. People have said, doctors have said he had diseases like from mitochondrial disease. That is not true. A friend of the family actually got an independent doctor to say, "Hey, look at this chart. Does he have it?" And they came back and said, "No, they paid for that test." So that's been a flat-out lie. They said he has a degenerative brain disease, but they never actually diagnosed him with this is the cause or this is the problem and put him on a system. Over the period of time, Thomas and other people have wanted to help. So there was lots of hospitals in the US who said they wanted to care for him. Boston's Children's Hospital is one of them. Other ones in Poland. And what was this? The whole case became Thomas wanted to get his baby out of there because he wasn't happy with the diagnosis and the lack of a diagnosis. And it went through a point where it went to the courts where they said, look, he has this, he's on this life support machine. Without the life support machine, he is not going to live. He doesn't have a high quality of life. while it was never mentioned, the story of Charlie Gard, which was the story before this right to die with dignity has been very much influential in the English system of, if you have certain pain and you have a right to die with dignity. It went through all the courts. Thomas said, no, I want my kid to live. I want to give my kid a second chance. I want to do all I can. My kid has a right to life. I am not having this. I am his father. I'm joined by his mother, Kate. The court said, no, it doesn't matter. We rule with the doctors. It went to the local courts. It went to the Court of Appeals, which is the system in England. It went to the Supreme Court. It went to the European Court. It went to the European Human Rights Court, said they wouldn't listen to it. And all that it was boiled down to was a system where the government and doctors said, we are gods. Your child has no quality of life. You've got to lay down and die, and you've got to accept this. And his family fought it every step of the way. About a month to 6 weeks ago, people started really getting caught on this, and Pope Francis tweeted his support for baby Alfie. The family of Tom is a big family. There's 9 of them, and they call themselves. When I was talking to them and having conversations with them, they quoted themselves as a very proud Catholic family. So the Pope was tweeting out support. The Vatican-linked hospital, which in Rome, which is the Bambino Hospital, said, look, we'll come, let baby Alfie come to us. You can't treat him. You can't even diagnose him. Come to us. We'll have palliative care for him, but we'll also try and treat him, find out what it is. Went to the courts again, went to the lower court. Court said no. Went to the Court of Appeals, said no. Everyone was saying, look, just let this kid live, let this kid to get to Italy. Italy stepped up, fair play to Italy this week, or last week. Italy said that he's now an Italian citizen. The higher-ups of the Italian government even said he is now an Italian citizen. If he dies, we will consider this murder of an Italian citizen. We will not take this lightly. Regardless of all of this, the courts and the English politicians didn't care. It just said, no, you have a right to die with dignity. Fast forward to last Monday, I was actually on the ground all day, and we had good news and bad news, and we can run through that if you wish. But 9 p.m. local time, which was 4 p.m. Eastern on Monday, they actually finally switched off the life support machine. He was told in court transcripts, and we have proof of this, the court was told by doctors that if you take his life support machine off, he will not last more than 3 to 5 minutes. Well, he lasted over 100 hours. It only came to, he had a rough night Tuesday night, but he was looking like he was doing really good. He was getting really strong. The initial, at 9 p.m., he was cut off from everything. His family asked for air. No, you cannot have air. He was denied oxygen, food, and water. Later on that night, he eventually got oxygen, but he was then refused water and food. After more pleading, they then started giving him water, but still denied him food. And then it was only after that, on Tuesday, that they started feeding him. It went through all the processes. Even people were saying, look, you got to let him go. You got to let him go. You're clearly wrong. It went to the lower courts again on Tuesday. The judge said no. It was the same judge who seems to be a really bad judge. It's Justice Hayden. If you Google him and read some of the stuff, his opinions, seems to be on the wrong side of this issue. Then what made it really heartbreaking for the family was they lost the lower court, and Judge Hayden made very inflammatory remarks, which I don't use this type of language lightly. They were stupid and wrong and inflammatory of what he said about certain people. Wednesday, after that ruling, he said it was the last thing, it was the last chapter in this brave young boy's fight, was a quote. The Court of Appeals reached out to Tom and said, look, do you want to appeal this? You can come to us. They gave him that hope. Wednesday they hear the court, and the court, it was a 3-judge court this time, said, no, we're standing with the original decision. You have to go through a system. But long story short, Friday morning, Friday evening, your time, at 2:30 a.m., poor Alfie gave up and passed on and is gone to our Heavenly Father.
God bless him. God bless him. May God have mercy. May God have mercy on the souls of these British politicians and these British judges and these nurses and these doctors who watched a child die when they could have just as easily let him go. Why insist? Why insist on death when you can wash your hands, when you can say, fine, go ahead and take him home? Why? What is the issue of England? That they have to enforce socialized medicine to the point of death? Is that what this is about? That we have to put the jackboot of government socialized welfare, so-called, on the necks of children and suffocate them and kill them in a hospital? Is that where a child is supposed to die? Are they not allowed to die at home? I mean, you wouldn't do this to a dog in the United States. You wouldn't do this to a dog. You'd at least let the dog go home, at least die on his pillow with his master by the fire. What is wrong with England? Mother England, right? Mother England. And the Queen. Are these just her subjects? Are we subjects of the crown, her property, her slaves? To be decided, oh, well, you should live and you should die. And who's the one who says that you have quality of life and it's better for you? Your quality of life is not good enough. It's better for you to die. Where in God's name did that kind of mentality come from? Is this what's left in Ireland, John? I know we're facing the next issue of the yes to 8. Is that the sickness that's infecting Ireland? The home of Catholicism at this point? What is wrong over there?
So there's several things that you need to break down, and I think it's very important to make a clear distinction between Ireland's abortion referendum and what happened with Alfie, and they're two separate issues, even though it's linked with life. The system that you have over here is there's many issues that need to be discussed with baby Alfie. One is he was denied the basic rights that anyone else should be a right to. One is the parental rights, and you don't have that when you don't have freedom. Eventually, freedom, when you have tyranny, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. It doesn't have no boundary. It will just erode all your rights. It just might take a time to get to that point where it erodes the last rights. So parents don't have rights, because when you have a big statist government, the state becomes the parent. You've seen this time and time again. So the state is arguing we know what's best for the child. The second thing you have is a very troubling aspect over here, where you don't have a belief in God, and you don't have a belief even in a higher power. And it's one of the reasons why America is exceptional and unique, because America was built it's built on Judeo-Christian values, but it's built on a premise that we call nature's law and nature's God. Because when I say this to people, they go, oh, there you go again, John, you're preaching the Bible to me, and you're trying to get me to convert to Jesus. I'm not. America was built on nature's law, the laws of nature that are self-evident. That allows for a higher power. You want to sum up what is the problem in England? There was summed it up in a small clip of an interview with Piers Morgan, who I know you all love over there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He actually came out, wait you hear this, credit to him. He hosts a morning show on a station over here. And he actually came out on the side last week, of baby Alfie, and said, I think the parents have a right to take him home. And he dared utter the phrase that was so offensive to a doctor on his panel. A doctor. He dared utter the phrases, miracles happen. The minute he said that, it was like been triggered. The doctor came across and said, no, they don't. Miracles do not happen. So we have lost the belief in a higher power, because we have made people gods. In England and in Ireland, and you're doing the same in America. You are making politicians God. You are making judges God. You are making people gods, that there is no room for anything outside force. And by the way, if anyone thinks, why would you say that? Why is that such a bad thing? If you have ever been with someone who has had a cancer diagnosis, doctors themselves will tell you, especially if it's terminal, they will go, how long you live is up to you and how much you fight it. If you lay down and give up and you say, I've got terminal cancer, you only say I have 2 weeks to live, you could be dead in a couple of days. But people have fought it and lived months and years after it. There's been stories like Rick Santorum's youngest kid, I think he was told, he'll be dead within months. I think Rick Santorum's daughter is like 7 or 8 now. There is no room for a higher power, because we've made people gods. The second thing is about parental rights. Do you have a right? And what these people are saying is, they're saying, this kid, they were being fed misinformation. They were being told, this kid has a degenerative brain disease. They hadn't even diagnosed him with anything. And they had this compassion to say, well, look, the kid has no chance of living, has no quality of life, and just let him die. But here's the thing. They were saying there's no cure right now. we are not giving science the credit it deserves. Yeah, there may not be a cure now, but if you have him a good quality of life, there might be a cure next week, next month, next year. Scientists are making discoveries all the time, but you can have good quality of living. You want to see proof of this? Look at Down syndrome kids and how they were treated 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. They were ostracized. They were considered a burden. If you had a Down syndrome kid, you could say that kid was never leaving your house. Fast forward to today, Down syndrome kids have testified in front of Congress. Down syndrome kids live alone. Down syndrome kids have jobs. Down syndrome kids have families. They have a major quality of life. Just because it's not quote-unquote perfect, their life matters.
You know what?
That is the problem we're having right now.
All lives matter.
Amen.
What you just said, that, their quality of life, and it flashed on me how others are judging the quality of life of a Down syndrome or Alfie or someone. Isn't that very similar to, prejudging someone's gender or somebody else's identification? You're judging, right? Mm-hmm. That's not allowed in the United States. You can't judge anybody. You can't tell a child in school that they're a boy or a girl. I mean, we're getting to that point, right? Because then you're projecting upon them your bias, your gender bias against the children. But here we are doing the very same thing on the sanctity of life, and being able to tell another person, your life is not good enough to live. We're doing the same thing with euthanasia with older people. You get to a certain age, maybe your memory's not so good, maybe your hip's a little bad, and you know what? Your quality of life, I will define your quality of life. It's what you've just said, Jonathan. I am not God. I can't do that. I can't look at somebody else's life and say, well, I pronounce that life inferior. That is placing an individual ahead of God, and that is incredibly wrong. It also reminds me, there was a quote from Hillary Clinton in her book, It Takes a Village. Mm-hmm. Here's her quote. Here's what she said. Hillary Clinton from It Takes a Village. I believe the primary role of the state is to teach, train, and raise children. Parents have a secondary role. And she was a heartbeat away from being a president. She was our candidate for the DNC. That is the state power over people. And we're judging it here in America. And you're right, we're losing the awe and the majesty of where did life come from? You can't mix it up in a test tube. Even with all of the technology you have to take living cells. Even if you're playing God in a test tube and you're going to have, a petri dish baby and all of the modern technology for conception, you can't animate things that don't have life in them. You're taking living cells, eggs, sperm, and you're bringing life along from that. Life does not come except through God. God Absolutely. Is the master of life. God gives life, and he gives freedom. The state is taking that freedom and is usurping the right to determine life. And you're very right, Jonathan. It is. We have lost God in all of this. We have so minimized God and the power of the Almighty that we're losing our way here in politics. Of course, we're going to lose our way because we're not following God.
Hey, John, one thing you were down outside of this hospital whenever everybody was meeting up. Was this all planned, the gathering? And can you go into detail about, there was news reports that came out that all the people wanted to run in, but you kind of not contradicted. You kind of told the facts of the story. It seems like the media was trying to create a narrative that wasn't true.
Sure. So yeah, they had a Facebook page, Alfie's Army official on Facebook, and it had like 400,000 or 500,000 people as members from all over the world, just saying prayers and support. And when this story became local, and it's a very local community, and when I was on the ground, many people were saying, "Well, Scousers stick together no matter what." So they were fighting and standing, and they were singing outside. And there's right beside Alder Hey Hospital, there's a park. And they obviously meet there, and they would light candles there, and they would pray, and they had have their banners, and then they'd go inside front of the hospital at times. So it was organised, and there was loads of different people trying to do different movements there. When I got there on Monday, I got to spend the day there because I'm very conscious of the media and their agenda at all times. So I actually felt I needed to be there. I wanted to see the story, because all I was reading in the reports was just facts and figures and stuff you can easily figure out. I wanted to get to the story of the matter. So I said, I got to get over there. So I went over for the day on Monday. I arrived very early on Monday morning. I was in at 8 a.m. And by the time I got to the car, I rented a car and went to the Alder Hey hospital. Like, the first thing I see, just as a side note, is I'm driving down the street and the sat nav is saying the destination is upcoming on your left hand side, and I see this big building that's multicolored, and on the top of it, all the way on the side and all the way to the top, it's all grass and it's this environmentally friendly. And I went, that's the first picture I see of Alder Hey and vision of going there. So we care more about the environment than we do our own kids. But I got there and I got to spend the day with these people. And just to give you the context of exactly what was happening, so we got a load of good news and bad news. There was people, Thomas is updating the Facebook group and letting people know. We got an update where initially with the life support machine was supposed to be switched off at 12 noon. They said we got that, and then we got a report and said no, they're not switching it off, that there's the negotiations between Italy and the governments are getting involved, but the Alder Hey can't switch it off. And everyone was just euphoric. It was like, yes, okay, maybe a miracle is going to happen. Well, fast forward to a few minutes later, from that euphoria, we're told, no, actually, they're switching off the life support machine at 1:30. And everyone just went from total euphoria and we're about to witness a miracle to the pain and the despair. So we all go to the front of the hospital. And literally, we're waiting for an update where there was prayers been said, there was singing, people are just, chanting. They had loads of different football anthems over there, but they were changed it to include Alfie. So one of them was, people always ask us who we are, and we would tell them we're Alfie's Army. So it's a football chant, but they'd made it become a them. So 1:30 is about to come, and at 1:29, I kid you not, because I was in the middle of this group of people, this is how the conversation went, and people were shouting. They said, it's 1:29, his life support is going to be switched off in 1 minute. Someone else shouted, we have to do something. Does that sound very familiar to political arguments to you?
Oh, absolutely.
And someone else, we have to do something, to which someone else shouted, let's storm the hospital. And then it started. Now, there's two things. One, when you see the media up close, you get to see how despicable they really are and how they don't care. They got their story that day. It wasn't about Alfie. It wasn't about parental rights. It wasn't about socialized medicine. It wasn't about a baby struggling and clinging for life. It was something is going to happen. We want to be there to report it and get all those clicks and likes and shares. Well, I missed the start of it because I had to unlock my iPad and then start a Facebook Live, and I'm not the quickest person. But what you saw in the media was all these people stormed the hospital, right? Two things you need to bear in mind, which the media never said or showed. And I did. It's on my Facebook. You can go see it if you don't believe me. Question me. First off, was only about 50% of the people went to the front of the hospital. The other 50%, who were the vast majority, were there all morning, were there regular basis, were just stood there. They were shouting, and I can't repeat because you'd be thrown off the air and off lanterns if I repeated some of the language that was used. But what they were effectively saying was, get back. There are sick kids in there. You're not helping. You're hurting Alfie. Get back now. Media never shared that. Point number two is, if you actually watch the Facebook video, it wasn't like they were storming the beaches of Normandy. That's that charge, that stampede. Was there a few at the start who stampeded the hospital and went for it? I'm sure there were. But if you actually watch it, it's more like people just went, oh, there's a load of people gone to the front of the hospital. I wonder what's happening. I'm going to go too. You see women with buggies just like walking up, just going, as if, what's happening? What's going on? So the media never reported this. Am I defending what those people did? Absolutely not. There are sick kids in there. There are people going in and out. Would I want to see it if I was going into a hospital? No. I think you have to protest the Martin Luther King way. But the context matters. The media just got their narrative of these people are just so out of control. They're going to storm a hospital with sick kids, and these are bad people, where the truth was, a lot of people who were there 24/7 and every day were shouting abuse, saying, get back, you're hurting us.
It's so important, John, that you were there and you put the mark in history, because nobody can tell you what actually happened there, and you are helping out with the old media, because that old media is going away, because people are not following it because they're hearing the truth from grassroots guys and people like ourselves. I mean, it's so important, and those 2 points are so important that people are not just going to be running to protests all over Twitter, all over Facebook about things that didn't even happen. So thank you so much for being such a strong part in that.
No, absolutely. It's my pleasure. And it was an honor to be there and to share the story. And I will say this to your audience. This story's not over. Alfie has fought his last fight and he's no longer part of us. But there's a big story going to come out. And there are people working behind the scenes. There is many things that need to be discussed in this story. Socialized medicine, parental rights, treatment of the hospital towards Alfie, diagnosing these, courts, system, the way it acted. So there's a lot to be discussed, and this story is not going away.
Absolutely.
Will you update us when you can? Because I know that you're very close to the family and you know a lot of things, that we'd really appreciate it if when you can speak about it freely, we would love to have you back and learn about it.
Absolutely. I'll keep you guys updated on the loop. And I'm not friends with the family per se. I just have contacts on the ground, and people have been on this case. I'm friends with people who have been on this case a long time. So, yeah, absolutely.
And John, you wrote an article at glenbeck.com, and we'll share it out. And the 2 things that really hit me on there is an observation of an Irishman, lessons from Alder Hey Hospital. Is life precious? Is life worth fighting for? I think those are 2 super important bullet points that you have on there, because I got to sharing all kinds of Alfie Evans stories all over Facebook, and one of my colleagues came up to me, and it was a respectful conversation, but she was bringing up to me how we don't have enough money to take care of all these kids. If we take care of one, we're going to have to take care of all 5,000 of them. And she went on, and I looked at her and I said, I want to take care of all lives matter. All these kids matter to me. And I don't care about the money, to be honest with you. I mean, I know we have to figure out a way, but how many GoFundMe pages can we set up that people will raise millions upon millions of dollars to help stuff like this? I don't think socialized medicine is the way. We can figure out a way just by cutting budgets easily of waste.
Well, but for goodness sakes, how about allow the child to not be in the hospital? Yeah. If the parents say, I'd like to take the child home, please, how does that cost anybody any money? If another government or another person says, I'll pay the bill, how does that cost us any money? It's so ridiculous to boil it down to money, because this isn't about money. It's about the tender, loving care of just a one-on-one individual. Of course, we can't feed the world. Of course, we can't do everything. But why keep somebody imprisoned in a hospital bed when you have people say, look, I'll take them and let them die at home. I'll at least get them out of the hospital. Why imprison them? Do you have any information, John, about why they refused to even allow the little boy to go home? This makes no sense to me at all. Why wouldn't they let them go home?
So if I may answer those 2 questions. So first, yours, AJ. I think one of the problems we have, and I say that this is so relevant to Alfie's story, but also to every debate that is happening in your country and the world right now. The simple fact is we do not know history. With the greatest respect, and I would do this in the most politest way I possibly could to the friend you had a discussion with, and ask them in the nicest way, and it's an inflammatory question, but it has to be asked. So was Hitler right? Because if you think all lives don't matter, then you were saying at some point Hitler was right. Because what did Hitler want? Forget Nazism, forget German nationalism, forget all this. What did Hitler want? Hitler wanted an Aryan race, a superior race. And everyone he deemed not fit and not worthy and not superior was dead. We always remember the Holocaust as Jewish, but there were a lot more people in the Holocaust. It wasn't just against Jews, it was against Christians, it was against gay people, it was against handicapped people. So we have to have that conversation. I would also point out, since he's Irish and he's a disgusting, vile piece of, you can fill in the blank, a quote that needs to be asked. George Bernard Shaw, where he was promoting what Hitler said, and he basically, and I quote, said, "Sir or madam, would you be kind enough to justify your existence?" We need to have this conversation about, does someone have to justify their existence? And if you think they do, I would beg you to look up the Down syndrome, people talking, the leader, Frank Stevens, I think his name is, where he had to go in front of Congress and utter the words, "My life matters," and watch that and see, does that make you highly emotional? The fact that in 2018 we have advanced so much as a society that we still have people saying, yeah, you know what, my life matters, pal. I count. I mean something. And we are still discussing this. The fact that we are talking about a precious baby boy. If you take everything that liberals say, they are all about the compassion and they will stand for the weakest in society. They will stand for the minority. They will stand where people can't defend themselves because that is what government is needed. Well, then, of all people you should be fighting for, it is the Alfie Evanses of the world. Because Amen. He hasn't got a voice. He is defenseless. He has no one standing there. You should be, if you're compassionate. I don't know how anyone could look at that baby boy, and Tom did a great job with technology. If this was 5 years ago, I don't think the emotional connection would have been made by so many. But because of Facebook Live, the amazing advancement of how great Facebook is, he was doing Facebook Lives and showing live videos that people could just look at live. And you're seeing this gorgeous, beautiful baby boy, and people are saying, no, you don't have a right to live. So I think we need to have honest conversations. And if people are saying, there's 5,000 of these people, it's too expensive, then was Hitler right? Because I don't know about you, but I'm saying Hitler was wrong. Hitler was one of the most evil, despicable men in history. He belongs on the Mount Rushmore of evil, vile scumbags. With Stalin, with Pot, with Lenin, with Hugo Chavez, with Che Guevara, all these icons that people seem to love. He is vile, and he needs to be remembered.
Absolutely.
And the sad thing is, the sad thing is that only 40% of American college age kids even know about the Holocaust, and fewer than that would even recognize that. If you say Holocaust, as you were just saying, Jonathan, a lot of people say, oh, it's just Jewish people, which is not true. There were a lot of other people, because it was about eugenics. It was about perfecting the Aryan race, and that some races are better than others in his sick, twisted mind. That was Hitler. And you're right. People have not studied history. They don't even know about the Armenian genocide. I
know 100 years later, we still don't even recognize it.
Exactly, or whatever went in Mexico about 100 years ago when they were trying to purge all of the priests and things there. I mean, it's sickness. People don't even remember it. But I guess my second question was
to answer your question, why they wouldn't let them.
Yes, why would they just let him go home, since it's not about the money, right? So what is it really about? Is it the control over lives? Is it population control? Is that at the root of this?
So on Monday in the local court, when the judge ruled against Thomas and the family for bringing him to Italy and getting this extra care, he made his ruling, but then he also, which wasn't part of his ruling because it's not that you couldn't make a judgment on this, but he made an appeal to Alder Hey Hospital to work with the family to let him go. The statements from Alder Hey were amazing. That one of them was there would have to be a seismic shift in the attitude of the parents for us to let him go.
What?
Because their fear.
What?
Mm-hmm, because their fear was they would just let him go, and then he would go to Italy.
Why is that wrong?
Why is that a fear?
Why is that
it should
the fear?
Be.
That's the system we live in. The other troubling precedent, which is going to be I fear for English people, was I've read Supreme Court decisions both in England and Ireland and in America, and they're usually very boring and dull things, but that's what people like me do for kicks on a Saturday night. I have never read a legal decision. I know. All I'd say is I don't think there's anyone on God's green earth who misses Antonin Scalia, because he made those things at least readable. Everyone else is
yes, he was a brilliant writer. Brilliant. He made it very interesting and clever sometimes. Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. But everyone else it's like, oh God, it's like pulling teeth. But I've never seen a precedent where someone is saying you can't go to another country. I've seen people say you can't come to our country, the illegal president saying an English person can't go to Italy, or in this case, an Italian citizen can't go to Italy, and if you do bring him, we will arrest you on the grounds of assault. So that is, there's been so many troubled legal precedents. So that was the thing. Thomas made a statement then on Thursday, saying it was his last statement and he was working with the hospital, which leads many to believe that they were going to release him eventually. But he would have had to agree not to do any follow-up treatment. It's all this is government and power gone wrong, where doctors and judges and politicians, by their silence, know that they can do anything they want.
Hey, John, I want to thank you for your hard work on that. Let's take a break right now, and on the other side, we'll come back and we will talk about the repeal of the 8th, because Susan and I have been covering that since the pro-life walk that happened in Dublin. So let's go ahead and take a break, and we will come back and cover that. You're listening to Common Sense Radio on the Lanterns Radio Network.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
In every rising of the sun, my purpose was to be thankful to be alive. I was even more thankful for the blessings that came with this life, specifically Virdis, my wife. But that came to an end when Akhlavain and her minions violently took her away from me. So my new purpose in this life is to gather all the pieces of the Stone's Heart so I can defeat Akhlavain and get back my bride. Join me as I travel to new worlds, making new friends and avoiding old enemies. Read more about my story in the first 2 books of the Stone's Heart series, which are now available on Amazon.com in Kindle format. The first book is The Quest for Savitvarda, and that is followed by The Heart of Pagaila. Stone's Heart is more than a fantasy and a sci-fi quest. It's me fighting to get back my precious wife, despite the overwhelming odds against me. Stone's Heart. Join, explore, and believe.
And welcome back to the program, folks. We are honored to have the man, the myth, the legend, Johnathon Dunne, with Susan and I here on Common Sense Radio. And this segment we wanted to cover the repeal of the 8th Amendment in the Constitution of Ireland. The vote is on May 25th. And what this a yes vote would do would repeal that 8th Amendment to make it legal for women to have abortions openly, because now they have to actually get in a car or a plane and go over to the UK where they're starving kids in hospitals. Jonathan, do you have any what's the feeling like over in Ireland right now for that vote? I mean, you look back and you see 70,000 people in Dublin marching on the streets for being pro-life. I mean, that is encouraging to me. And in doing some research, I saw back in 2015 in September that another group had brought this up for a vote again, and it failed. What do you think? What are you seeing right now, and do you think it will be different?
I hate to say this, but I see this bill passing and abortion will become legal. It's just the natural order of things, the way Ireland is going. So some of the arguments over here, just people are totally removing. People have removed God from society, and over here, without getting, this is a total side issue, but it needs to just be touched on. Over here, and in places in America at times as well, there's a very big, clear failure to distinguish the difference between God and a certain religion. So over here, Ireland is a very pro-Catholic country, and the Catholic Church in Ireland has done itself no favours. There's been plenty of abuse scandals. The way they've dealt with that abuse, they haven't covered themselves in glory. The way they talk, the way they act, they don't do things if I used to be a Catholic and I'm no longer a Catholic, that should tell you all you need to know about that. But the problem that we have is that people don't distinguish the difference in God and the Catholic Church. They are just one and the other, and you can't distinguish the difference. Because the Catholic Church hasn't done itself any glory, as Ireland's population is getting older, the people who yet generally go to church are more older, and the people who don't go to church are younger. And a lot of young people have used the abuses and the horrific things the Catholic Church has done and their response to them as a beating brush against God. They don't see the difference. And what we've seen is a total removal from God from the society. And what you have is a system where it's more secular and everything is up for discussion. What I always find so sad about talking to people who are pro-choice over here is you actually listen to their arguments. So you know me, AJ. You know a lot of what I stand for. There's a reason I called myself freedom's disciple. I'm a disciple of freedom, not of man, of freedom. When you talk to these people, they're like, I believe woman has a right to choose. They are all for that freedom. But when it comes to the freedom of speech, when it comes to the freedom of defense, when it comes to the freedom of keeping what you earn, when it comes to the freedom of government just leaving you the hell alone, they don't like any of those freedoms. So there's a really sad, ironic thing about that. But the other thing is, we don't understand life as precious. We don't understand right as a life from God. And that is why why I do so much in America is because you're so unique. You have all the solutions to every problem you have in America right now. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the GOP. It's sure as hell not the Democratic Party. It is your founding fathers.
Yep.
You have an understanding of what government is. Ireland has this system which has been entrenched, and I don't hold it against the Irish people because they've been taught no different, where government is your giver of rights. It's why we had the gay marriage, and everyone thought this was such a great, wonderful, progressive Irish nation. Because to Irish people, they see rights as what is popular and what comes from government. Every nation has that. England, Germany, Europe, Australia see government as the grantor of rights. When you see government that way, it's only obvious that government can therefore decide who lives and who dies, whether that's true the Alfie Evans story or whether that's true abortion. We have to share the message of nature's law and nature's God that says, no, governments are just made up of men. And men, whether you believe in religion and Christianity and Jewish, absolutely, they are sinners, or whether you just are an atheist or a deist and you believe man is inherently flawed, that we are there to enlist governments not to give us rights, but to protect rights. And if we can have arguments and disagreements over tax policy, over freedom of speech, over freedom of religion, but we have to come together that life matters. We are in a system in Ireland where we don't recognise life matters. And that is the troubling thing. And what if you actually use some of the arguments that the pro-choice people are using? So one of the popular ones is trust women to make the right decision. I wonder if I said just trust the businessman to pay all his taxes, would you be okay with that? Just trust the businessman to pay all the right taxes.
Well, let's just trust Hitler to make the right choices for eugenics. Let's trust the scientists to make the best call for genetic evolution.
I just had an idea pop into my head, and maybe what we need to do before this vote, John, and what I showed you. What he was commenting on is the book, The 5,000 Year Leap, that's on my desk.
Oh, yeah.
Is I wonder if we raise, $95 million, we could get a book for everyone in the country.
That would be the biggest waste of money because they wouldn't read it.
Yeah.
That would actually take work. It would have to be 6 syllables or less for people to actually engage.
So true.
And I'm not saying that.
You're being honest. Yeah,
I am being honest. We need to create a hunger in people. The other problem is that we have, because the church is so weak and because we've taken God from society and the way we see government is I will link this, if you don't mind, with the Alfie Evans story.
Absolutely.
So I go over to Liverpool, and I'm a very discreet person, but in certain ways I'm not. So I always wear dark colours and I always wear a big cross. The first person to talk to me, I didn't want to go get involved in the story. But I just said, I want to get the story and I'll engage with people, be friendly, but I don't want to become the story. The first person comes over to me, he goes, hey, how you doing? And I went, hi. And he goes, oh, that accent, where are you from? I said, I'm from Ireland. He was like, oh, thanks for coming over. And he said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. Are you a priest? Because I've got the big cross on. And I'm like, no. Are you a pastor? No. I believe I'm a Christian and I'm very active in my faith. And he went, can I ask you another question without being insulting because I'm not a Christian? I went, sure, you can ask me anything you want. Where are your priests? Where are your pastors? Where are they making a stand? The Pope came out of this. Where are they? They were absent. And I was like, are they not here? He's like, no, I've been here a lot of the days. I work, so I can't come every day, or I would. But every day I've been here, I've never seen them. I've never heard them speaking out. Now, bring this to the pro-life issue in Ireland. The priests talk about it a bit, but if I was a priest or I was a pastor, God help anyone going to my church, I would have nobody. But I think if in the lead up to an abortion referendum, I would be talking a way to talk about life each and every week.
Yes.
We need to have that. We don't have that. We need to be very vocal as Christians, as a church, as priests, as just religious goers. There is no more important issue than life. There isn't anything that should be discussed anywhere meaning bar life and standing for that life. God will not hold us unaccountable. We are in a society where if you have any belief in God, whether you're a full-blown Christian or a Jew and you're very proud, or you're just like one of these people who, I go to Mass a couple of times a year to hedge my bets in case I'm wrong. This is not for you. Right?
Gosh.
If you're only hedging your bets, hedge your bets the right way. Stand for life. Because if on the off chance I'm right and everyone else is wrong and there is a God, he won't hold us blameless. Going back to Hitler, there's a chance you could make the argument to St. Peter or to God or to Jesus, ever who you meet at those pearly gates, say, I'm sorry, God, I lived in World War II Germany. I didn't know. There's a good chance you could make that argument. In 2018, with all the resources, with internet, with Facebook, with all, lanterns, all this internet radio, all the resources, you can go to Amazon.com, you can download Kindle books for free. There is no reason or excuse for ignorance anymore. And it's not about your rights to guns or your right to contraception. It's about a right to life. And this is not a left-right issue. This is not. Neither side owns this. The Republicans, nor the Democrats, nor the Liberals or Conservatives, no one owns the right to life. It is an eternal truth. It was one of your unums. And we need to come together and to share this message with people, to wake people up. But unless we do that, I don't think God has enough mercy for the amount of mercy we're going to need if this passes and for what is happening in our society.
It's absolutely insane. Like, I wonder how many of the pulpits worldwide were talking about this. I know at my church, our focus was on second chances, and we've been doing a study on the book of Revelations. And my pastor kept bringing it up. Is your name going to be in the the book of life? So I thought that was kind of, to me, I was like, okay, I see him kind of tying this in. He never said Alfie Evans. He never said, abortion or anything like that. But we were talking about life, and that's what we've been focusing on. I mean, I thought that was really important. Susan, how about your guys'?
Yes, I actually go to. You're right when you say the Catholic Church sometimes doesn't do what it needs to. I was glad to hear that the Pope finally stepped up and said something that was good. But yes, what the elite fighting force of the Church should be the priests, and they should be speaking every Sunday. Every Sunday, the homily should be about life. And you know what? You said something that made me think of this, extending your argument, Jonathan. Life is an individual right. It is not a collective right. It is not a government right. It is not a liberal issue. It's not a conservative issue. It is an individual right, an individual issue. Each one of us has that same responsibility, just as these priests do. But you know what? I can completely understand why ministers, rabbis, and priests are very reluctant to say anything, because all they get is criticism and attack. And it comes from the laity. It comes from you and from me and everyone to help them and say, we've got your back. You speak about life. I'll be there, and I'll contribute, and I'll do my work on the ground. I'll do my work, because we all sit back. We're waiting for others. Like this man who asked you, well, where's the priest? We don't need a priest there. We are Christ in body as a group. We're there. We are life. We can speak the words. It's wonderful to have the priests here. They're the generals, if you will. But we're the boots on the ground. we have an individual responsibility, because life is individual. It's an individual right. It means it's an individual responsibility on our parts. We all need to be speaking up wherever we are, in government, in the secular world, everywhere, because you're right. It is about life, and it is our fundamental right, because that's what God gave all of us. Life first and freedom second.
So I'll finish up with two stories for your listeners to consider, and why faith is so important. First of all, since we talked about World War II in Germany and Nazism, and that's always a popular subject, I'll share a brief story with someone your audience may or may not have heard of, a wonderful man called Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And it's a story where Dietrich Bonhoeffer is a priest in World War II Germany, and he's arrested and he's in a camp. And he's sitting there in his cell one day and he's reading his Bible, and his door is open and a priest walks by. And he takes a shudder and he says, I just saw someone with, as a priest. I got to go find out what this guy is doing. So he comes back to him and he goes, but my God, what have you done to be in here? And Bonhoeffer famously replies to in paraphrasing, the question is not what I have done to be in here. The question is what you have done to not be in here with me. And that might give you something to think about and your audience to think about, because God won't hold us blameless. So we have to make the stand, and even if it's unpopular, and we have to pay the consequences. The second story is from America, from your history and from your founding, why you're so exceptional. America does not exist fundamentally, factually, accurately without the role of the pulpit. When you consider and you read your founding documents, ranging from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution to the Bill of Rights to the Federalist, but let's focus on the Declaration of Independence. All the phrases in there that everyone utters off, and left and right, all men are created equal, endowed with their maker, certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you read all the down there. That wasn't poll tested. This wasn't like politics today, where we'll poll test the words and see what the folks like and what they don't like, and then we'll put all these collection of words together and get people to vote on it. That came from a pulpit that was preached long before 1776. It was just common knowledge. It was why your founder said they were self-evident. They were self-evident because regardless of your beliefs, they were preached in a pastor from a pulpit. And that is what made America exceptional. If we don't waken up the pulpits again, whether it's through priests and pastors and religious leaders, or whether it's us as a church, if we don't wake up the pulpit and understand that this is what has to be preached, it is nature's law, nature's God, not Jesus. Jesus helps, God is wonderful, but nature's law that everyone is apt for and that life is precious, our world is over. So there's two stories that I would ask you to think, and there are a lot more that might go out. I always say to people, don't take my word for it. Question me, question everything I say, and do your own research. Don't think what I think, and if I may be so bold, don't think what AJ or Susan thinks. Listen to them, do your own research, and question with boldness the very existence of God. So, and that's a Thomas Jefferson quote. If you want to know the rest, Go Google it.
I love that quote. Hey, Jonathan, Susan and I want to thank you so much for your time today. We really, truly appreciate it.
You're awesome, Jonathan. You're on it. You're awesome.
Keep sharing. You guys keep sharing the news, and thank you so much for letting your listeners know about abortion in Ireland. And if you have any Irish friends or any Irish families, please reach out to them. And America can talk about the horrors of abortion because of all the babies that are murdered in your country every year. Reach out to them and have a conversation. But you guys keep sharing the message, keep sticking to principles, and together you'll make America exceptional again, because you are the shining city on the hill.
Thank you, John. Hey, God bless you, and God bless all of our listeners.
And may God bless Irish voters to do the right.
Yes, absolutely. You're listening to Common Sense Radio on the Lanterns Radio Network.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.